Florida prosecutors have now confirmed it. The death penalty is officially on the table for the men charged with the murder of rapper Foolio. And judging by how the courtroom proceedings are unfolding, it's clear these guys already sense their fate is sealed. But instead of showing any sign of fear or remorse, one of them delivered a chilling message that revealed just how cold-blooded this execution really was.
What do you know about Foolio? Let's start from there. I think he's a piece of shit.
He didn't stop at just disrespecting the late rapper. He took it even further. Let's break down exactly how everything went down and the disturbing way he bragged about Foolio's murder. Foolio's killers aren't just showing zero remorse, they're outright mocking his death. Not long ago, one of the accused, Isaiah Chance, was caught on camera in the courtroom, casually nodding his head to "Who I Smoke," the viral diss track by Yoongjin Ace that openly taunts Foolio and his entire crew. That moment alone was chilling, but what unfolded recently in court took the disrespect to an even darker level. Before diving into the twisted courtroom antics and the cold-hearted message they delivered, we have to rewind to the night that sealed Foolio's fate, June 23, 2024. The 26-year-old rapper had planned to celebrate his birthday in Tampa, Florida, deliberately distancing himself from the violence and trauma of Jacksonville, the city that had already taken so many of his friends and loved ones. Foolio had accomplished what many from his background could only dream of. He found success in the music industry, pulled in millions of streams, and earned the financial freedom to enjoy a life far from the projects. But no matter how far he climbed, his past was never too far behind, and the long-standing feud that defined his career was about to claim its most high-profile casualty. In the early hours of June 24th, the night took a tragic turn. While celebrating, Foolio, real name Charles Jones, posted several updates on social media, sharing the night's events with his fans. But those real-time updates turned out to be a fatal mistake. By repeatedly revealing his location online, he unknowingly handed his enemies exactly what they needed, his exact whereabouts moment by moment.
Jones was in town celebrating his birthday and posted on his social media his locations several times throughout that night. Surveillance video was critical in this investigation, as suspects were seen on video following Jones from location to location.
Killers didn't stumble into this. These men came prepared. Eventually, 5 suspects were arrested in connection with Foolio's murder: Isaiah Chance, Elisa Andrews, Sean Gaywright, Davon Murphy, and Richard Murphy. And from the evidence that's now surfaced, it's clear this wasn't some heat-of-the-moment act. The level of premeditation was so calculated, it shocked even veteran homicide detectives. As the investigation unfolded, chilling details emerged. These suspects weren't just reckless, they were bold. They used their own mother's car, booked an Airbnb just a mile from the murder scene, and left a digital footprint with their own cell phones. The case was described by prosecutors as a layup, not because the crime was simple, but because the trail of evidence was so blatant. The coordination and planning involved were terrifying. They didn't come to Tampa to party, they came to carry out a hit. Yet, what makes this even more disturbing is the sheer carelessness. Whether it was arrogance, desperation, or bloodlust, they left behind an evidence trail so obvious that it practically solved the case on its own. It's like they were so obsessed with fulfilling this mission that they didn't care who saw it, as if they thought they were invincible. The group moved through the night like men on a mission. It wasn't random. They trailed Foolio across multiple locations, studying his moves, tracking his security, and waiting for that one window of opportunity to strike. They didn't just want him gone, they wanted to be sure. That opportunity came around 4:15 a.m. Foolio was headed to a hotel on McKinley when one of the suspect's vehicles began tailing him. But instead of following him directly into the lot, they staged across the street, an intentional move that showed tactical forethought. They didn't act recklessly. They took strategic positions to ensure maximum visibility and minimum risk. Surveillance footage captured what happened next, and prosecutors now have video so crisp and damning, it turned the courtroom into something like a movie theater, showing the horrifying final moments of a young rapper's life. Foolio didn't just fall victim to a drive-by or random attack. This was a cold, calculated ambush, and the killers made sure there was no way he'd survive.
3 shooters exit a vehicle and walked in the direction of the hotel. They murdered Jones with a handgun and 2 rifles. This barrage of gunfire also struck 3 additional victims who miraculously survived this incident.
What makes this case especially disturbing isn't just the brutal, calculated nature of the murder itself. It's what happened immediately afterward that truly underscores the depth of cruelty. As Foolio lay dying in a Tampa hotel parking lot, as his friends fought for their lives, and as his mother received the unimaginable call no parent ever wants to get, one of the men responsible was already celebrating. A message that would later become pivotal to the prosecution's case was sent from Sean Gathwright's phone, but attributed to Rashad Murphy, one of the suspected shooters. Just hours after the killing, the text read, "I'm coming home. My thirst is quenched. Pop a bottle of Don Julio today." The heartlessness of this message is impossible to ignore. That phrase, "my thirst is quenched," strongly suggested satisfaction, possibly even revenge. And the reference to Don Julio, an unmistakable play on Foolio's stage name, added a level of mockery that was both personal and deeply disrespectful. Investigators later uncovered that this wasn't just a random, isolated crime. It was part of a wider gang-fueled conspiracy. Detectives believe the ATK and notice 12,200 Iskrian gangs collaborated to carry out Foolio's assassination, viewing him as a major threat in an ongoing turf war stemming from Jacksonville. This wasn't just street beef spilling into another city. This was a coordinated mission involving multiple individuals with a singular goal: eliminate Foolio. All 5 suspects, Isaiah Chance, Elisa Andrews, Sean Gathright, Davon Murphy, and Rashad Murphy, have been charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutors have confirmed that the death penalty is being pursued. For the 4 male suspects, Andrews, who was pregnant at the time of her arrest and revealed that fact in a September 2024 court appearance, is not facing capital punishment. But the decision to pursue the death penalty at all speaks volumes. It reflects not only the sheer brutality of the act, but the organized, methodical way in which it was carried out. Yet for all the military-style coordination, the group left behind a trail of evidence so sloppy that detectives called it a prosecutor's dream. Despite their strategic execution of the killing, they showed an almost careless disregard for covering their tracks. Investigators were able to identify 2 vehicles connected to the crime, using surveillance footage, license plate readers, and cell phone data. The suspects practically handed over the map to their movements. Perhaps most revealing of all was their attitude after being taken into custody. Elisa Andrews attempted to distance herself from the murder by telling police she had simply allowed the others to use her phone for communication. She denied any knowledge of a plan to kill Foolio, but given the level of precision and coordination required to track someone across multiple locations in a city they weren't even familiar with, and then to execute him so efficiently, her claim of ignorance rang hollow. Foolio's death was not just another tragedy, it became a defining moment in the war on gang violence in Florida. Law enforcement used this case to issue a clear, public warning. This level of violence will not be tolerated, and those who think they can act without consequence will be met with the full weight of the law.
I want to send a clear message to anyone that the city of Tampa is not where you want to come to settle a dispute. You will be charged, you will be arrested, and you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent possible.
But this wasn't just a random, senseless act of violence. It was the latest chapter in a long, blood-soaked war that had been simmering for years. The streets never forget. This wasn't just about music or ego. It was about real gang ties, long-standing feuds, and a cycle of retaliation that refused to end. Foolio wasn't some rapper pretending for the camera. He was deeply connected to 6 Block, a gang entrenched in a deadly rivalry with AIK, short for Ace's Top Killers, and 1200, 2 crews that had long been associated with Union Ace, and other known street figures. This wasn't some petty neighborhood beef. These were real gangs with a real history, and bodies had already been dropped behind these colors, sets, and street codes. It all really exploded back in May 2017, when a turning point changed everything. Zion Brown, Foolio's 19-year-old cousin, was murdered, an act widely believed to be tied directly to the war between Foolio's side and Yoongjin Ace's side. That murder wasn't just a loss, it was a declaration. It was family taken in cold blood, and from that moment forward, vengeance was in motion. See, when you lose a loved one in the streets, especially to known enemies, that pain doesn't fade. It festers, it grows, and it demands retribution. That's not just personal, it becomes gang business. It becomes history that must be avenged. Everyone in Jacksonville who was paying attention knew what was coming next. The tension had reached its boiling point. Blood had been spilled, and more was sure to follow. From that moment on, the streets were on edge. Drill music videos turned into open threats. Lyrics weren't just entertainment, they were war cries. And Foolio? He didn't back down. He made his pain public and turned it into fuel. But with every diss and every post, the stakes grew higher. That's why what happened to Foolio wasn't just a tragic killing. It was the inevitable result of years of carnage, betrayal, and payback that spiraled out of control.
I was crushed. Cause it's like, I could have saved him, like, you know? I could have, like, cause I was, like, on the phone with him, like, he called me, he was like, "Big cuz," that's my cousin, you know what I'm saying? He like, "Cuz, let me come to Daytona with you.
Pain in Foolio's voice when he spoke about losing his cousin made it crystal clear. This wasn't just some rapper clout chasing or chasing headlines, this was real pain from a real loss. In the hood, family is sacred. It's everything. And when someone dares to touch your blood, that's when the streets start whispering and then screaming for revenge. Bodies start dropping, and suddenly the pain turns into purpose. But the streets, they always demand a payment. And the price that was paid next proved that this beef was far from over. It was just getting started. In June 2018, the cycle of retaliation escalated dramatically. That's when Makwakiasai Yungin Ace, whose real name is Kayanta Bullard Asiai, was ambushed during a birthday celebration. The attack was vicious. Ace was shot 8 times. But somehow, against all odds, he survived. What makes it even more haunting is that 3 others, including Halamo's own brother, weren't as lucky. They were killed in the same shooting. That kind of hit isn't random. That's assassination level targeting. 8 bullets and the man still breathing? That's either divine intervention or pure hood resilience. But either way, it only added more fire to the blaze. And then came a moment of pure, ruthless disrespect. Something that shocked even seasoned street veterans. Foolio, clearly feeling vindicated and fueled by rage, reportedly glorified those killings on social media. But he didn't stop there. He took things even further by creating a mocking t-shirt dedicated to the dead. Let that sink in. Making t-shirts to mock your dead enemies? That's not just beef. That's open warfare. That's a message loud and clear to every rival watching. I'm not scared, and I'll spit on your grave. And in the streets, that kind of disrespect doesn't go unanswered. That's the kind of move that puts a permanent target on your back, no matter how high you rise or how far you run. The merry-go-round of bloodshed didn't slow down. If anything, it spun faster. The violence bled into February 2019, when tragedy struck again, this time even closer to home. Bipiam White, Foolio's 16-year-old brother and an aspiring rapper himself, was gunned down in a shooting at an apartment complex. The streets had come back with a vengeance. When they took Bibi, they didn't just kill another young life. They took a piece of Foolio's soul that he would never get back. That loss, that's what hardened him. That's what kept him lashing out in music, in interviews, in everything he did. Because once you've buried your brother, once you've watched your family get hunted down, there's no going back. That pain becomes part of who you are, and in Foolio's case, it shaped his final chapter in the game forever.
Lil' bro, he was like, that's my little twin, like, you know, I got him tatted on my face. Like, that's my little bro, okay. One day, I was at my godmama house in the hood where we from, on 45th, and every day after school, he'll come to me.
This wasn't just about losing a homie from the block. This was blood. This was Foolio losing his little brother. Someone who looked up to him, who mirrored his every move, who believed in him more than anyone else. The streets didn't just claim another young life that day. They took Foolio's heart. When they took Vidal Mai, they shattered something deep inside him. Something that would never fully heal. That kind of loss, it doesn't fade. It changes a man forever. It marks you. And for Foolio, it became the moment where everything shifted. The day they gunned down Bye Bye was a brutal reminder that no amount of fame, money, or clout could shield the people he loved from the consequences of the life they were born into. He had tried to keep his little brother protected, tried to steer him clear of the drama, knowing full well that the block was boiling and the ops were lurking heavy. But the streets don't play fair, and that day proved it more than ever. No one is safe, not even the innocent, not even the ones you're trying to shield. Bye was just a teenager, barely getting started, and yet he was targeted because of who his brother was. That's how deep this feud ran. That's how cold the streets had gotten.
I'm like, look, bro, it's hot outside, like the police, you know, I ain't even thinking about no, like, niggas, like, I ain't even talking, like, bro, the police hot, look, bro, like, don't walk nowhere, bro, sit here with me until it's time for you to go wherever you need to go, you know what I'm saying, wait till the sun go down or something.
But young kings don't always listen, especially when they think they're invincible. Just 25 minutes after stepping away from his big brother's side, Bubby was gunned down in Hilltop Village, the very same neighborhood Foolio had always referred to as the worst hood in Jacksonville. The irony was brutal. The very streets that raised him were now destroying everything he cared about. The loss was personal, and it didn't go unanswered. In March 2021, ATK affiliate Sue Hockey Robinson was arrested in connection with Bahai's killing, but what made it even darker was what happened next. Sue dropped an album titled Be Out, with the cover featuring dead KTA members. This wasn't just beef anymore, this was becoming performance art. Sick, twisted, and completely devoid of remorse. These guys weren't just gunning down rivals, they were building discographies off their names. When Foolio and his crew saw that, that's when the feud left the block and entered the charts. March 2021, Young and Ace dropped Who I Smoke, a viral diss record that shocked everyone, not just for its content, but for its delivery. The beat, a sample of Vanessa Carlton's 1,000 Miles, an innocent, beloved pop song now twisted into a score for death and revenge. The video featured Spinabens, Wapawit Chapa, and Fast Money Goon Nikwan, naming off Foolio's slain friends like it was a roll call. Bibby, Techie, all named, all mocked. The video hit 18 million views on YouTube. It wasn't just disrespectful, it was psychological warfare. Foolio wasn't just watching his ops laugh at his pain, he was watching them profit from it. Hearing your little brother's name mocked in a viral song, that's a pain no track can erase. So Foolio did what street soldiers do. He clapped back. Enter Foolio's When I See You remix. Over 6 million views. He flipped Ha Fantasia's love ballad into a straight-up graveyard anthem, literally dancing around tombstones, with printed photos of the victims. He sampled Ha news broadcasts, talking about the 2018 triple homicide that took out Young Ace's brother and friends. That's not just retaliation, that's public psychological torment. He turned mourning into a message, and the message was, I'm not done. At this point, the music wasn't music anymore. It was war being waged in 808s and punchlines. Tragedy wasn't sacred, it was monetized. With every beat drop, every hook, every stream, the violence was turning into content. And it was addictive. Millions were watching, not realizing they were tuning into Bob real-life murder saga disguised as entertainment. Despite Foolio's rising fame, working with big-name producers like Zovan, Nick stacking millions of views and building a real career, the hood wouldn't let go. And Foolio couldn't let go either. Even after the charts, he found himself caught up in multiple shootings. That same year, the message was clear. In this life, success doesn't buy safety. And that's the saddest part. There were flashes, moments where you could almost believe this beef might slow down, that maybe these men could use their pain to build bridges instead of burning them. But in the streets, pride and pain are lethal, and forgiveness, that's weakness. Both Foolio and Young and Ace were more than gang rivals. They were talented storytellers, voices of their generation, men who could have used their reach to must inspire change. But when you've lost blood, taken bullets, and buried your dreams under caskets, it becomes nearly impossible to walk away. And for Foolio, that walk would never come. The streets that crowned him were the same ones that pulled the trigger. Here is your fully reworded version of the provided script. No added information, just rewritten for clarity, flow, and dramatic tone. Oh, and